Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, I'm Trip. This is my 86 FRS BOZ thing. Called me many names. I'm doing another kind of a low budget video. You know, something you can build, you know, a lot cheaper than normally cost you to buy it outright. If you watched the last no budget video, you saw that I made a lip on my WX. Came out pretty good, not too bad. Now it's this cost tone. In this video, I'm going to make a front splittle. As you can see, this is my old splittle. It has seen better days. It might have got ripped off the car. I'm not going to tell you how that happened. You know, shit happens. Now, for the actual splitter itself, the flat piece, I'm going to try to keep it close to 50, 60 bucks that you can do yourself. This is not counting the brackets and mounting and stuff. This is just a splitter. Because once you start getting into mounting it, the prices of that stuff can vary, but I'm still going to keep that somewhat affordable. But main splitter itself, 50 bucks. And if you're wondering what kind of material we're using, what do we have? What can I find? This? No? How about this? It's hard plastic? No? Not this? This? Yeah. Let's go with this. So I'm going with a 1/2 inch birch wood. I picked it up at Home Depot. They also have a 1/4 inch and a 3/4 inch, which 3/4 inches is pretty thick and it's a little bit more expensive, but it's, like I said, thick. The 1/4 inch is thinner, you know, depending on your setup and what you plan on doing with the car, the 1/4 inch would probably work fine. But I want something a little stronger, a little sturdier. And if you're wondering why wood, well, wood splitters are a lot common than you might think. You see them all the time in motorsports and endurance racing, track days, autocross, time attack. You see them all the time, and people use them pretty frequently because it's cheaper and easier to replace. Because splitters are a consumable, you know. They look pretty, they look cool, but they are made to get messed up and scraped. And more likely, you're going to mess it up. It's going to happen. Also, when you do mess it up, it's a lot cheaper to replace this piece of wood. Even though it's kind of an expensive piece of wood, considering prices right now, but still cheaper than buying a composite splitter or aluminite or carbon fiber, you know, those materials that they're commonly made out of. Now this is my old splitter. I had it for a few years, about 2-3 years on the car. For a budget splitter, it actually lasted me a good while. I'm kind of happy with it. No complaints. But it has seen better days. As you see, it's a little wrinkly. But I am going to use it to make my new splitter. I'm going to use it as a template. But if you don't have a splitter laying around like I do, I am going to show you the other way of making one. Okay, a look at some of the components that you can use to mount the splitter. Kind of going from cheapest to a little bit more expensive or fancy. Of course, on the cheaper side of things, screws. New screws or brackets and stuff. A lot of stuff you can get at Home Depot, Lowe's. Some cables, turnbuckles, pins, brackets. A little bit better stuff. Custom make some brackets yourself. These are off Amazon. You know, a little cheaply made, but they did get the job done. And stuff like that. You start to get a little bit more expensive name brand, better quality stuff, like these Verus Engineering splitter rods. Which this setup for this splitter, I ended up using a lot of stuff in the middle to mount it. You know, I custom made some brackets, used these splitter rods, switch, and a few other brackets here and there, and it worked out pretty well. It held up. But now I'm going to go with this setup with a mixture of this stuff. But I'm going with the professional, awesome racing quick disconnects. This is made to push level, and this comes disconnected because I want to be able to unmount my splitter pretty easily, pretty fast. So I'm going to go with this setup. Which it's not super expensive or anything. It's definitely reasonable. It's just more expensive than this stuff. And I'll definitely ignore this idea. Like, that never happened. Don't use those. Okay, now that we know the game plan, let's get to work. If you don't have a splitter like me to trace, something you can do is take your front bumper off and lay it on the piece of wood and just trace it. You want to trace the outline of your bumper. Okay, you want to trace your front bumper, but you want to start here. You don't want to go the wood to go anywhere past it, because this is where your tire is, and you don't want your tire hitting your splitter. So be safe to give you a little bit of room. And before you start tracing, you want to know how wide you want your splitter to be. Like this one is roughly about 2 inches on the side of the bumper. Then it goes about 3 on the front of it. The reason you want to know that is before you start cutting or marking, you want to account for that in your measurements. So you want to leave at least 2 inches here before you make your mark. You see I got my bumper traced out. It's not perfect, but you got a rough understanding of how big your bumper is and the length of everything. Next you want to do is make a line about 2 to 3 inches outside of this line. This is where you have to get a little creative on the style of your splitter. Some are really pointy and straight. This one's made to look good. Some is just a big circle. Some people just do a big circle or oval shape. So that's up to you on how you want it to look. Once you got your measurements or your marks ticked out, use like a straight edge ruler or something and connect the dots. So I just use a straight edge, traced it, and kind of followed the line I kind of want it to look like. You know, you can see that's about 3 inches here, and it gets a little narrow here. Of course, this is all up to you on how you want to look. If you want it to be 4 ounces here, you can, or if you want it to be just a big circle. A lot of people do that. Okay, that's one way. Now I'm going to do my way. But since I have another one, I'm going to trace this one out and kind of go off it a little bit. It's going to be a little different. Probably not going to go in here like this. It's probably be a little bit straighter, kind of like I did here. And it was very wavy. That's why I have all these clamps trying to keep it straight. Which I'm doing a shitty job. Okay, I got my splitter traced out, but now I'm going to take a bunch of measurements and trying to find my center line and stuff like that. That way I can make sure everything's the same on both sides, everything's straight. Okay, I figured out all my lines, did some measurements, make sure everything was straight and lining up. And I'm adding 1/2 inch on both sides than my old splitter. So I figured that out. And now I get to do the fun part. Cut the wood. Okay, my splitter is cut out. As you can see, I got plenty of material to make a second one if I wanted to. So, even though I said you can make one for about 50 bucks, technically you can probably make two for 50 bucks. If you have a friend who has the same car as you, you guys can go halfies and split the cost. It's even cheaper. Of course, it's just a rough cut. I still need to smooth everything out, make everything look a little nicer, but you kind of give a good idea on how it's going to look and the size. But before I start sanding it and doing all the detail work, I'm going to cut the back portion. As you can see on this splitter, how it's kind of notched out in the back here. What you're going to have to do, you're going to have to temporarily install it or place it underneath your car and see what you have to clear. It could be pieces of your subframe, could be engine ports, hoses, brackets. Of course, it's a little easier for me since I have this one. But I'm probably just going to cut this portion out because I went and looked underneath the car. I'm not sure what this is cut out for. But guess while I'm here, I'll go ahead and give a shout out to, it was Starstruck Aero. Now the company name is Aero Blitz Racing. I'll put it up here. Smaller company out of Canada made this. It's actually lasted me a few years. So I'm actually happy with the quality and that it lasted. So I'll give a shout out to them. And random fact is this was the first one in the States.
If you ain't first, you're last.
The first one for the BLZ 86. This was their first splitter that they shipped to the States. And I messed it up. Of course, after you're confident that everything fits the way you want it, and it's going to clear everything, then you get to do the tedious part, the not so fun part, which is sanding.
Yay! Oh.
2,000 years later.
Okay, I've done a lot of sanding. Depending on how well and nice you want this thing to look, the more time you spend on this portion or the detail portion, I'm smoothing everything out. This is the bottom of the splitter. I have it upside down, up down right now. If you notice, I tried to make a bevel here. Just cut the edge down. That way the wind comes in and goes underneath the splitter, not on top of it. Okay, the splitter is done, all cleaned up, sanded how I want it, which is actually the easy part. Now the hard part is actually mounting it to your car. It's finding the best place to mount it and the right materials and getting creative on mounting it. Which I'm not going to do a step-by-step on this portion of the video or the project, since your car might be different from mine, but I will show you afterwards what I did. So let's figure this out. Well, actually he'll figure it out for me. Okay, I got everything painted, looking good. Okay, weighing the wooden spittle. Hard to see, but it's about 9 pounds. That one was about 6 pounds. So even though you'll think this would be a significant difference, the difference isn't that drastic. Now we know what they weigh and they're done. Now I gotta put it back together, all it screws and hardware and brackets back on. Then we can throw it back on the car. And like I said earlier, this is how I'm doing it, which is probably a little bit more expensive. It's not very expensive, it's just a little bit more expensive than the cheap side. So I'll probably round some of this up towards the end of how much mine cost. Okay, here's the bottom of it. As you can see, I tried to keep everything as flat as possible. You know, it's a lot better for aerodynamics. And also if I scrape over something, you know, hit a bump or something, it doesn't round out a bolt head. Instead of just kind of grinds on those, you know, less likely to mess something up. Okay, let's look how I mounted it. I mounted my quick disconnects to my actual roll bar, built a plate, drilled some holes, got them hanging where I needed to be on both sides. Of course, these little brackets are for like light bars and stuff, for like roll bars. I'm gonna use those to hook up the front things. Why can I not think what they're called? And the back ones, you see this little metal bracket? I have it screwed into the underneath the light housing, goes through the plastic, and comes out there. It's gonna grab this little there. Okay, the only thing left is to put it all back together for the last time. I've lost count how many times I've taken off the bumper and the splitter. There's quite a bit, but luckily I made everything quick disconnect, made everything easy to come off. Like my bumper's on quick disconnects. It's no heel, except for the front. I actually had to use 10 mils for those. And the splitter itself is pretty easy to come on and off, no tools. The main reason I did that is one, to get in and out of my garage, it's kind of steep. And also like to put porta car and trailers and stuff. You know, if I go to track and trailer the car, I can take the splitter off pretty easily, put it back on when I get there. But hopefully next time you see this, it's all in one piece. And the splitter is done. You can see I got it fitted back on the car. Doesn't look half bad. I'd rock that. Even from this close, you really can't tell it's wood. Doesn't look like wood. This looks like a plastic splitter, really. Or even a composite spindle. Not bad for 50 bucks. The spindle does, it feels very, very tight. You know, feels very secure. I can step on it, which I have. I don't want to do it right now because I want to put footprints on it. And took it for a test drive. Kind of drove it around. Haven't gone super fast with it yet. I think the fastest I've gone was 75, 80-ish. Haven't taken it on the highway yet. And feels good. Car felt planted. Did a few tones. Car felt planted. It didn't come off or pull out anything. So those are all pluses. Okay, now I guess I'm going to go over some of the prices. And I guess what I'm trying to get a good estimate of what I paid for this splitter, and also some estimates on a cheaper version, you know. Okay, here are some of the prices that I paid for the components that are on my build. It's kind of hard to price some of the things I already had lying around, so this is kind of a rough estimate on some of it, but you know, kind of a big ballpark figure. Also, well, your location will probably vary a lot as well. If you're in a different country or state or whatnot. And here is some of the prices of some of the components you could use to mount it on a cheap scale. And of course this can vary a lot. Just get creative on securing it safely. Okay, that is it for my low budget splitter build. Hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. If you plan on doing your own, building your own cheap splitter or lip, let me know in the comments. I do have a bunch of other things planned for this car coming. I have some more parts stashed away that's ready to go on. So come back for those. Until then, peace out.